There we go. All right. I can hear it.
All right.
It's on my headphones.
All right.
Yeah, there's other people. There's the directors on here.
All right. Luna's Logic by Anna Raspberry. The crisp breeze danced through the trees, leaving an ominous chill behind. As the leaves stilled, an eerie, unsettling silence filled the secluded space. The sound of a twig snapping rang out through the open area like the sound of a gunshot. Although she had felt the small branch break under the pressure of her foot, Luna frantically jumped away, slapping her hands over her mouth to suppress the shriek that threatened to burst from her lungs. Slowly turning her head from one side to the other, Luna cautiously checked her surroundings. Once she persuaded herself that the coast was clear, she took a tentative step forward. Trying to drown out the sound of the pounding of her heart in her ears, she took a deep breath and continued forward. Luna looked around, trying to memorize specific landmarks. It should look the same later, she told herself, ignoring the gnawing feeling in the pit of her stomach. Hearing a rustle in the leaves, she immediately froze, not even daring to breathe. The sudden movement in front of Luna startled her. Falling, she didn't notice the pain that spasmed through her body as she stared at the eyes in front of her. This time, she couldn't suppress her shriek. After the echo of her blood-curdling scream was overcome by silence, Luna finally studied the creature in front of her. Its blood-red eyes stared her down, making her skin crawl. As it began hissing, it moved, squatting on its hindquarters to pounce away from her. After blinking a few times, Luna realized that the terrifying creature in front of her was none other than a stray black cat traveling the forest by night, just as she was. Get a grip, Luna. Standing up, she squared her shoulders and marched off at her brisk pace. Soon, her thoughts took over her mind, and Luna thought about what she was doing in this forest in the middle of the night. They had been reviewing ghost stories at school, and everybody had enjoyed the break from their usual lecture. All except for Luna, and everybody knew it. So when they learned about the tales of their local forest and how it was said to be haunted, everybody decided they were going to check it out on Halloween. Not wanting to be the black sheep, Luna had agreed to join them, except nobody showed. Luna had almost turned around and went back home to a comfortable couch, a marathon of movies, and a bowl of popcorn and candy. Instead, Luna decided she was going to prove them wrong. She was going to go into the forest in the middle of the night on Halloween and prove that the stories they had talked about were strictly that, stories. Luna was so focused on her thoughts that she didn't notice the sound of crunching leaves and snapping twigs. Stopping to study the area she was in, it took Luna a moment to realize that the sound of someone traveling through the forest wasn't being generated by her. Someone or something was making their way through the forest, and they were coming straight towards her. She was petrified in fear and waited as the sound got closer and closer. Just as she was debating whether or not she wanted to try and find a place to hide, the approaching noises came to a halt. A moment of silence later, Luna scoffed at how frightened she was. It's probably just a deer. You saw the forest. Now go home. You bought all those M&Ms for tonight. You really shouldn't waste them. Rolling her eyes at how ridiculous she had been, Luna pivoted on her heel and started her trek back to the forest to where she had begun. Using the bright moon as her guide, Luna quickly made her way back to where she had entered. Just as she was about to exit the dark, vegetational crowded area, she lifted her head to look at the glowing orb above her. Lost in the beauty of the cratered rock she was admiring, a nagging started in the back of her head. Isn't everybody constantly attacked when they look to the moon for direction? Heaving a final deep breath, she shook her head in incredulous disbelief. Horror movies have it all wrong. The moon is a beacon of light in the darkness of all the scary things that occur in their unoriginal plot lines. Right as the words exited her mouth, a firm grasp wrapped around her ankle. Before she could cry out in alarm, Luna was pulled to the ground, being dragged further back into the forest. Clawing at the ground, she could do nothing to slow the brisk pace at which she was being dragged along the cold, firm area beneath her. All of a sudden, the death-like grip around Luna's ankle was released, and the rest of her fell, thudding hard against the ground below her. Luna remained still, taking deep breaths to calm herself. I'm alive. I'm okay, she muttered to herself. Pushing up on her arms, Luna tried to stand, but was grabbed and shoved against the tree behind her. Bright red eyes stared her down. A pale hand raised up and traced a snail down her face, drawing blood from her cheek. The hand brought its finger to its face and licked the blood it had harvested. The dark form in front of her lifted its other hand and repeated the process on the other side of her now ashen face. Luna began involuntarily shaking and sobbing. The salt burned the abrasion on her cheeks. The dark creature took a step closer, pinning Luna against the bark behind her, feeling closer and closer and closer. And just as it was a mere breath away from her, the creature disappeared into the night. Without hesitation, Luna took off, never coming back.
Very good. Very good. All right.